Thank you, President Lazarus, and trustees and members of the community who are joining us this evening. We are able to carry out our critical mission of teaching and learning and academic growth because we take care of the care and attention and social and emotional. We think of that first because unless that's handled, it's going to be hard for teaching and quality teaching and learning to occur. We have joining us this evening Ms. Dawn Linden, Mr. Kevin Carr, and Dr. Marian Fedishin, who will walk us through the academic updates. Trustees, we've been through about 5 chapters. Sunday was 2 years since we closed our schools on March 13th of 2020. The state closed at the same time we did by governor executive order. We, during that time, have been through a number of iterations of delivering teaching and learning in the district. We kept our students connected. I had the great opportunity to be with Elementary Caucus yesterday morning, trustees, and I shared with them how much and how strongly I believe that our teachers and our support staff and our school leaders will be evaluated well in history for the way they've flexed and moved and changed so many chapters inside of this 2 years. And the beautiful thing about where you are now, where we all are now, is that folks have learned so much along the pathway. And we're bringing all of that to this next chapter of 2022 and beyond. So what I asked the team to do, rather than walking you through every chapter, trustees, you know those well because you were with us every step of that way, but they're kind of bringing you the snapshot of now and how we're looking forward with our critical mission of teaching and learning. So Assistant Superintendent Ms. Dawn Linden will start us off on this academic update.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swift, President Lazarus, and trustees. It is my great honor to be here today and to be one of 3 who get the opportunity to highlight the great work that's been going on across our AAPS team. And there's just no way to show our gratitude to our teaching team, to the Teaching and Learning Council, who for the last 2 years have carried a very heavy load of shaping and guiding and supporting and trying to provide direction at a time when there was no playbook for any of this. And it's been quite a journey. So I'm here with Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Kevin Carr, and our Executive Director of Student Support Services, Dr. Marian Fedishin. But we are just 3 of a much larger team, and I hope we can do them proud tonight in sharing some highlights of this work. As Dr. Swift shared, we'll start by just recapping a little bit of the past couple of years to give some context to how we have learned forward. We continue to do learning forward as we go. So in about 35 slides, we're going to try to highlight a whole body of some really, I think, really powerful work that the teaching team of the Ann Arbor Public Schools has done. So in this segment, we'll, like we shared, review some of the teaching and learning evolution that's happened since 2020 and how we continue to do that work. We'll share some of the ongoing work, as Ms. Parks mentioned. The heartbeat of everything that we'll share tonight is about equity. It's about transforming both culture and practice in order to make sure that our students are learning, that they're able to access, that they feel significant and valued in the environment. And we're going to explore some of those really important interventions and acceleration moves. So how are we supporting students who need to make some learning leaps, lost a little ground over the last couple of years? We're excited to share that with you tonight. In this next piece, you will see a little bit of this journey. Now, as Dr. Swift shared, we're not going to go back into great detail, but you can see the journey and the evolution of where we started when the pandemic first began and where we are now. Some of the photos at the bottom here illustrate those transformations. And throughout each of these elements, we've had to make some pivots. But each time we took the learning with us that we gained from that last situation, and we used the best parts of that. Each time we evolved. And so we're in a place now where we're positioned very well. We've gained a lot of knowledge about what works and what doesn't work. And we're at a place now where we get to shape this. So it's an exciting moment for us in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. Tonight, we're going to share a little bit about each of these areas from the AAPS Framework for Equitable Instruction, which is in its second edition this year. It's continuously evolving according to our knowledge and our next steps. We'll share some pieces about equity-centered staff development, which is a critical component of our work, and we're very proud of this. We'll talk about the addition of teaching and learning networks. We'll talk about the ways that we're centering students in our practices, the importance of that digital ecosystem as a key place where access happens in our district. You heard a lot about family community connection from Ms. Parks, Mr. DeAngelis, Dr. Hayward, and Mr. Hilton, and their esteemed guests. And we'll talk a little more about how that looks from an academic perspective. And this last box, which is pervasive across all, which is about transforming culture. So if we do all of these pieces really well, the culture across the Ann Arbor Public Schools becomes an equitable place where everyone is valued, everyone gets what they need. So this is our mission. We'll start with the framework for equitable instruction. And I mentioned equity is the heartbeat. It is everything that we build from at this point. And we know this is important because of our historic data. So members of our Board of Education and our community will know that for some time, we have recognized and been transparent about patterns in our achievement data that really show an underservice, a historic underservice to certain student groups in this district. And so when we talk about equity and achieving equity, it's about designing for learning with each student in mind. And that requires us to know our students well. We're very proud of the evolution of our framework, but this represents the work. We have not arrived, and our team knows this. It's what we strive to achieve. So you'll see in this graphic a general overview of what we try to focus on in our instructional design, in our intervention, and in the work of instruction in general. So we'll start at the top left and think about culturally affirming instruction. So this means that we know our students well, we know their cultures, we know their identities, and most importantly, they don't have to leave any part of themselves at the schoolhouse door when they walk in or at the classroom door when they enter that classroom. They can be there as their full authentic selves. They are represented in the curriculum. They see themselves among our diverse staff. They feel that the curriculum is relevant, the instruction is meaningful, and that it's challenging and supportive for them. Jump over to the right top corner and you'll see universally designed instruction. This is abbreviated UDL. You've heard us talk about this for the past couple of years, but this means that our instruction is designed for entry points from multiple places, depending on the background knowledge that a student brings, the experiences they've had, their culture, knowing that they can enter that instructional place from a place of significance and also tap in where they need to tap in. It's also about expression. So they get to express their learning in ways that express some choice, their voice, and who they are. We'll jump to the bottom right. And here we talk about instruction with linguistic and academic accommodations. This is sheltered instruction protocol-based strategies. These are strategies for students who are trying to master the English language, but they're also strategies that work for all students. It is about being explicit about vocabulary, using visuals to support learning. Many of these practices are important for each and every student. So those are pieces we focus on in the design of our lessons. And then in the far left corner, we're talking about active and engaged instruction. So this is a modern view of how modern learners learn. So what is their agency in their learning and how are they empowered? What tools do they have access to be able to express, to tap into learning? And so it's a place where we intend to dive into a little more deeply. So each of these four squares represent places where we will continue to grow. And we're pretty excited about this work and already seeing good effect from it. So at this point, we're going to talk about equity-centered staff development, and I'll hand off to Executive Director Kevin Carr.
Thanks, Dawn, and good evening, trustees and Dr. Swift. In this section, we're talking about the professional development that our staff has participated in this year. And for the first time in the history of Ann Arbor Public Schools, every AAPS staff person has come together for a total of what will be 6 occasions this year for all district professional development in a quest for self-awareness through critical love, humility, and reflection with Dr. Yolanda Seeley-Ruiz from Teachers College at Columbia University. So over 1,800 staff have attended. That's everyone in the district. It's been monumental. Also this year, we've been meeting, our leaders have been meeting with Dr. Christopher Emden. He's the newly appointed chair of curriculum instruction at the University of Southern California and the originator of hip hop education. His message to us has had a focus on beliefs, habits, and removing barriers that are a part of building and district leadership. And we should also mention that not this year, but last year, we also worked with Dr. Rich Milner at from Vanderbilt University, and he shared his work with us connected to teacher practice, equity, and diversity. So these have been really important equity-centered professional development moments, all related to what Dawn shared connected to the AAPS framework for equitable instruction. And now we're going to be moving on to the third area of focus that we're going to share some more about the teaching and learning networks that teachers have been engaged in. And so these networks have been really important because they are for teachers and by teachers. The goal of these groups is to transform culture and practice by making learning accessible, identifying and implementing equitable instructional practices, and creating and supporting culturally affirming learning environments. The TLNs are important because teachers are supporting each other through the creation and sharing of resources, sharing effective teaching strategies, and making connections. There are wide reports of the benefits of these TLNs as a team approach in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. So it's been a great development. Here's an example of a TLN that has been in play and just been a real help around the district. It's connected to what Ms. Park shared earlier with her team in terms of social and emotional learning and mental health, and it's that TLN. And so the work of this team impacted and improved the entire district during the pandemic. It's an example of the excellence of the team approach. With their guidance, we've been working to make sure that every student is connected to a caring adult. Students are supported with common SEL lessons across the district. Adult needs are considered through the professional development, and families are supported as well. And so all that's been guided with this important TLN working together to serve others. And now we're going to move on to that fourth section, and Dawn's going to take this part.
This is, I have to tell you, the core of our work. It's the core of our presentation tonight, and it's what probably you've been waiting to hear most about. How are we supporting the needs of students as we are emerging from a pandemic, knowing there's been impact? And we need to understand also, and I'm certain that we do, that the impact of the pandemic has occurred unevenly across our district and among our students. And so the importance here is understanding that because of an uneven impact, we have to address this individually for students. There is no one size fits all. And so we have here a list of really important ways in which we are intervening on an individual basis. There is an important piece around coaching here for literacy and mathematics. And this is important to support teachers in being able to be thoughtful and planful in understanding where the gaps may be, what the lessons can be designed to address, and how they group students. And so the second bullet here about small groups and targeted skills is one we'll talk about a little bit later. But this is very intentional work on filling gaps, and that's happening every day in our classrooms. Under our student intervention services, you'll see it a little bit later more about our English language development work, which has been so impressive and continues to support students and families in really incredible ways. You'll hear about some of those intervention pieces, and you also hear about some more academic supports across the district. We will also dig in a little bit to how high school credit recovery has occurred and evolved as a result of the pandemic. So we're excited to share about that. Big parts of our work really have to do with flexible learning paths and time for students. We found that those two pieces have been really important. So multiple means and having additional time. And so those are some of our core lessons learned, and we'll share some examples of how that looks. Some additional layers of support that you've seen in the last year or two. One, this past year, implementing quarantine learning facilitators. So because we are not doing online learning or hybrid learning, students are in person. When students have to be home, either to quarantine or because of illness or other factors, they aren't able to see that live instruction the way they would have in, say, a remote or a hybrid situation. And so the solution for that has been to provide live support for students through the quarantine learning facilitators. So we'll share an update about that in just a bit. And then in the end of this presentation, Kevin Carr is going to wrap us up by previewing the summer learning opportunities that are coming. And we look forward to being back in great detail, not far from now, to share that work in greater detail with you. So let's dive into some of these areas. The first piece is about equitable engagement. And Kevin, I believe you're going to take this one away for us, right?
Yeah, sure am. So here's some of the guiding thoughts in terms of how we set students up for success in this environment. And we want them to feel empowered and feel as though they're in the driver's seat of their learning. So clearly that means at the very foundation of that, as we talked about in the first presentation, safe, caring, culturally affirming learning environments are the foundation to all of that. As we think about what students are experiencing, if we can make the system familiar and predictable, it helps students to feel successful as they move from classroom to classroom, setting to setting. And we want the instruction to feel responsive and flexible as they move through their day. We want to have resources available in real time so that students can get them when they need it, where they need it. And so we've been obviously very successful in that over the course of the pandemic, so that, again, multiple modes for student engagement and student expression are the result of this setting up students for success. As we look at that, the other moves that we're making are we're looking at the scope and sequence and making sure that it adjusts as it needs to. So we incorporate learning targets needed for success and beginning with our students on solid footing. So we start from the known and then move into where students need to go. And so that's just about meeting kids where they're at. It's about understanding where students are coming from in the moment and then adjusting. In promotion of engagement, there's also a focus on fully accessible curricula developed by teachers using open ed resources, textbooks, and other learning resources available online. So that promotes the anytime, anywhere philosophy. And then instructional books promote voice and choice. And so student preferences are regarded in that sense. And so as we go through, looking at the tools that students have, the Schoology management system has been a really important foundational part of how we've redesigned. But students then have access to a variety of other digital resources that connect to learning for the needs that they have. So Mayan, Sora, Screencast-O-Matic for teaching and learning purposes, along with Kami and Edpuzzle are examples. And then for other purposes, Gale for research, and Snap and Read, Co-Writer, Read and Write for differentiation needs. And so those are all available as part of this student access and engagement portion of the work.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And I have to say, I know we're trying to be efficient with our use of time, but if you take a moment and reflect on what Kevin just shared and take a look at the slide, each of these components, it has a huge impact on teaching and learning. And one of the pieces we've in recent years discovered that has been also part of having access for students has been the use of open education resources, which Kevin touched on here. And we have a number of those OERs in use across the district. And these are important not-for-profit, teacher input driven curriculum resources. So they're posted, they're created, and they're shared publicly. And we as a district have the ability to utilize those resources and also to share feedback and impact the growth and the diverse representation of those resources. So it's essentially this really powerful way of crowdsourcing the talent of teachers all around the United States, but in particular, the teachers here in Ann Arbor, which are some of the best in the country. And so that's a sort of a new and modern development in education that we're tapping into more and more. So we're excited about that. And all three of these bullets really have had such an impact on the transformation of teaching and learning, and they make learning more accessible for students. So in this next slide, we'll talk about the targeted skills instruction. So this is that direct instruction piece where teachers are technicians and they're really analyzing what are the gaps that students are bringing to this particular concept and putting students into groups and addressing those in short order to bring students up to speed so they can reconnect and own that concept solidly. These targeted small groups are happening all across the district every single day. In addition to those, which you'll see some images representing those, we've got a team of intervention specialists, literacy experts, and they're focused at K2. And I know this is an area of concern for us in literacy development and the impact of the pandemic on our youngest learners. Our literacy experts, they're called BLEs or building literacy experts, are in every single elementary school in our district. And they have a caseload of students with whom they work daily and connect with them in targeted skills groups, in addition to what they're getting with their really skilled classroom teachers. So it's this double dose, this tier 2 element of addressing student need. And it's really powerful. You'll see one of our BLEs in that third photo, Miss Jenny Miller, who's one of our lead BLEs, an amazing teacher, and so many others depicted here. In that far right corner, you're seeing a student who's exercising some skills. You'll see a book that student is focused on, and there's a teacher sitting across from that student really helping to support and guide. So this kind of work is happening all the time. In addition to targeted skills and the direct intervention of teachers, we also offer coaching to our teachers in the science of reading instruction to bring those skills for intervening to tier 1 so that every student has access to a teacher who's highly skilled. And we have incredible talent in this district, and our BLEs get to work with this team of teachers every day. We're excited about the addition of math coaches, which I'll talk about when we get to next steps as well. So put a pin in that one. Next, we'll talk about the secondary level and what's happening there. A big shift that has occurred as a result of our learning throughout the past 2 years is that we cannot wait to begin credit recovery with students. So in the moment that a student begins to slip, that credit recovery process begins. And so this means that students will have flexible time. They'll have more time to master concepts. They'll have an adult who's supporting and helping them with organization, with the concept itself, with getting the work completed, but doing that in a way that demonstrates their mastery. So there might be a multiple means approach to showing learning. The key pieces here are that there are teacher and student created personalized learning plans when a student begins to fail. And those plans detail what the student needs to do in order to stay on track to earn credit. It's a really powerful tool. It's a lot of hard work on the part of our teaching staff. So we want to thank our teachers who put energy and support to that care about our kids and they don't want to see our kids fall behind. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for the work that happens here. There's also a team of teachers who support those students outside of the school day. A lot of this happens in the summer, but a lot of it is happening over the weekends and after school. This second bullet about supporting learning for improvement and mastery means that there isn't just one opportunity to show what you know. So if you attempt that and you fail, there's an opportunity to receive feedback and to apply that learning and have another go. That piece about mastery learning is really, really important. And it's another piece that we've been evolving and transforming toward for some time. So that's kind of what we mean by a flexible path for students to earn credit. And of course, you've seen over the last 2 summers, really robust summer programming through summer and through the offering of A2 virtual pathways. So if a student really wants to retake a class, they can retake a class in the summer, and they can do that free of charge again this summer. It's a part of our commitment to make sure we leave no student behind. Here, I promised to talk to you a little more about quarantine learning facilitators. So if you're not aware, we have a team of certified teachers that we have hired to support our students who have to be at home for short-term periods of time, 2 weeks or so. These teachers are available to our students in grades K-5 and in the 4 content areas 6-12, so ELA, math, social studies, and science. And students can get every single day that they have to remain at home. They are not getting, so to speak, new assignments and different paths of instruction. What they're getting is support for success in the classes that they are currently taking. And so this is where Schoology has been a really significant part of our improvement and our transformation, because students at home can tap into the learning and the assignments that were delivered that day. And if they need help, they can tap into a quarantine learning facilitator to help them out. I will tell you, these are an extraordinary team of teachers, and they are new to the Ann Arbor Public Schools. They come from multiple places across Michigan. They were carefully selected and vetted, and man, if we could keep them for sure would. But this is a temporary process for us as a way of supporting during the pandemic. And we also know that students attend when they're able. So sometimes when you're ill, you can't log in. You're just sick. But I do have to share that many of the students who've been a part of these wonderful teachers' classes, they're popping in there just to say hi, even when they're well and they've been a part of class. They pop in and say, "I miss you. How's it going?" So it's always fascinating to me how these amazing teachers are able to build relationships with students in such a very short period of time and form some bonds. So it's been a great process, and we're proud of it. In this next piece, we're demonstrating for you some of the tools that are on demand for students. And these are tools that teachers use also to help identify those gaps that we were talking about earlier for targeted skills. But students can also work on these gap areas and targeted skills on their own 24/7 if they wanted to. We hope they're sleeping, though. And we want to thank the Board of Education and our community for supporting us with these purchases, because they'll look familiar to you. Kevin already mentioned Mayan. You've heard of Dreambox. We have that now K through 8. And we also have Lexia Core 5 at the elementary. And thanks to this recent approval from our Board of Education this year, we've added Lexia Power Up for middle school and for use with targeted groups in high school. And so these elements allow students to get in as often as they want to and need to and work in their gap areas. These are not tedious programs. They're fun, they're engaging, they're patterned after gaming, and they're really powerful. And so our students are really using these a lot. We appreciate it. And of course, Mayan is our leveled readers program, and our students are using that every single day. So very powerful and so necessary. So in this next piece, we're going to talk about the digital ecosystem, and I'm going to pass this back to Kevin.
Thank you, Dawn.
You got it.
In the digital ecosystem, you're going to get a flavor of a lot of the different tools that we have available to us that helps to shape the experience for students. And again, Schoology is really the heart of that. And we look for all of the other tools to embed or be connected there, because Schoology is the safe, accessible platform that we use. And so within that part of it, we're looking at attendance and communication, discussions among the students, where a place where students can get assignments and where progress monitoring occurs between a teacher and a student. So assessment and grades can be linked in there. And so that's a really important part of it. It's been a really successful one. Later on, a few slides later, you'll get a flavor of that with some actual data. Moving down, when we look at the way in which we've organized, for example, this elementary resource portal, you can see the variety of tools that are available to students, again, embedded in Schoology. And you can see across the top some of the core tools that we have available to us. You can also see on the bottom that we've organized this in a really careful way so that age-appropriate tools can be linked for kids at a click of a button. And so this gives you a flavor of the way in which we've evolved digitally to organize resources. There's a version of this screen that connects to middle school and high school as well. It's just so nicely laid out in an effective way of making sure tools are predictably organized for students.
And Kevin, I will just take this opportunity to thank our Library Services Department for leading the charge here throughout our pandemic. They have been integral in not only supporting our students, but families and their colleagues with the use of tech and getting access. In fact, our secondary team, when we were in remote instruction, they opened up help desks. Every single library services provider opened up help desks. And anytime a student had any trouble getting into class, they were Johnny on the spot to help them. And so I'm just really grateful for that team among so many others.
So I love how that previous screen organized a set of tools along with that really clear organization and clear definition of the tools that we have. We've also seen the rise of, as you would expect from a dynamic staff that we have in AAPS, creativity in the way in which they organize information. And so this is one really great example of how that's come forward, a virtual field trip. And so in this particular screen linked to resources in Mayan, a student in their library class can click any of the different icons or graphics that you see on the screen there, and it takes them to an identified set of resources about that, so they can sort of click into their own adventure, click into their own research. And so it's been a really engaging activity in one of our schools in particular, and it just gets a great example of 21st century learning at its best. I think that we've all probably at this time heard of the great success of the Upbeat Music program with the amazing fine arts department that we have in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. It's been such a relief to get ensembles together where different members are remote, but they can come together for a rehearsal and make music together, even though they're in different locations. And so that's just been a really amazing thing. You can see in the top corner there, over 2,500 student accounts are used in Upbeat Music. And so it's just been a really great tool for us, and one that continues to make our fine arts program shine.
This is, Kevin, such an important equity move for us, because so many students want to practice together outside the school day, but they don't have a ride or they don't have a means, to get together. And this tool allows them to do that from home. It's really powerful.
So sometimes it's just great to get a flavor of what's been going on using some numerical data. So you take a look at this one, and you just start to get an understanding of how used all of these digital resources have become in our district. Take a look at the top right-hand corner with 176,000 books completed in Mayan with 1.3 million minutes of reading. Go down one, and we end up seeing with Sora, 271,000 books borrowed, over 8 million minutes of reading. I think it's also really cool to think about Pebble Go and over 200,000 sessions where kids are engaged in online learning. Gale with the resources for research. While that number looks lower than the others, that's such an in-depth college level set of tools. It's just great for our kids to have access to it in our secondary settings. Dreambox, 700,000, over 700,000 lessons completed. That's awesome. Lexia, 73,000. Look at Schoology, 11 million views of instructional content. So you can get a flavor of how embedded that tool has become within our district, and it will only get bigger and more important as we go down the road. And then, of course, this Zoom meeting has got to be at least tenfold of that, given the number of Zooms I'm in these days. But I know that number actually represents the number of meetings for this fiscal year so far. So it's actually will be more than that by the time that we get to July. So these have been tools that have been such an important part of our last 2 years, and they will continue to be important as we move forward because we have moved into 21st century learning. And we're going to go right over to Dr. Fedishin, and we're going to talk about the family and community support systems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Swift, and the community. One of the things that we're exceptionally proud about is how we have connected with our families. Of course, we know that one of our pathways that helps students become successful are the connections to our families, which we have enhanced considerably in ensuring daily unique homeschool connections, which has allowed us to forge these ongoing positive relationships between home, school, teachers, students, and families. This also includes the ability for increased parent engagement through virtual options. So parents are definitely have very busy days with their children, with their work environments. And if they're unable to physically travel to a location, the virtual options have increased their access and ability to interact through virtual family and teacher conferences, literacy and math nights, and then also district-wide Title I family engagements and a wide variety of activities and engagements that we've had through the year. Family supports and resources for our students with interventions and supports. This is something that, of course, is close and very near and dear to my heart. But you'll see we have several connections that we have developed for our family supports and resources, starting with our parent online support portal. That's something we developed very early on to ensure that if parents had questions and concerns, they can directly connect to student intervention and support. We also had parent support groups called Connecting Together. And this was a way for especially our school psychologists and social workers to help families connect with the schools in working through all the issues, concerns, and challenges that we've confronted in the past 2 years that have been rather unique for all of us. We also, as a department, created evidence-based tips and strategies for remote education. So these are things that we've designed. The remote environment, of course, is very different for all our students, and especially students with IEPs, they sometimes present an additional layer of challenges. So our teams had developed strategies and tips to help the families address the issues and concerns that they may confront that is slightly different from when we're in person. And then we also developed a particular website designed just for families to help them with resources on a wide variety of areas, from academics to social emotional learning to behavioral interventions. This is all designed in a way to help us support families throughout the course of their students' educational trajectory. And then we have our interventions and supports for our students. So our student intervention and support services has really extended our supports for students in this form of Summer Academy. Our Summer Academies has been designed to build upon student skills as an additional layer, an additional support for the students to enhance everything that they have learned throughout the course of a school year. Also, with the focus on our students that are in specialized classrooms, we have enhanced our curriculum and its implementation through universal design for learning. And that's something that, if we look back to that framework a little bit earlier on, that was one of our key components of helping the success of all our students. I hand this back to Dawn.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fedician. I've been waiting for this slide. I'm so thrilled to share some of this work from our English Learner Development Department. This past year, Ms. Huda Harajli joined our team as our EL coordinator for the district, and she works closely with our previous EL support specialist, Cheryl Call, and I'd like to thank both of them for their leadership over this past couple of years, particularly this year in the shift back to in-person and all of the incredible supports of the EL team. We don't talk about our English learner team very often, but I need to share this with you, this recap of some of the changes we've seen in the last couple of years. So first bullet really highlights for us an increase in English learners in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. So this enriches us in so many ways, and to have multilingual students joining us. In the last year or two, we've seen an increase from 1,339 students who are English learners to 1,709 today. That is an incredible increase for us. And it also is related to students who remain with us as English learners, that category, because in the year of 2020 and 2021, of course, the WIDA assessment, which allows students to assess out, and every year we have 300 more or so who do assess out of the program. They didn't have that opportunity, so they remain as ELs with us, but we've also welcomed a number of new students to our district, and it's really been exciting. We are celebrating with that second bullet this time around 570 English learners who no longer need EL services. So they have mastered what they need to master, and they're no longer considered English learners in need of service. And so that's a huge number, and we're really proud of our EL team and the leadership of Ms. Huda Harajli and Cheryl Call. We have been sharing updates about this with our board and our superintendent, and we're very proud to have welcomed, at the time we wrote this presentation, 42 Afghan refugees, but I've received some texts, and we've welcomed 2 more families just in the last day. So it's very exciting to us. Our students enter our school district in 17 different schools in the district. Our newest was Burns Park recently. So we're excited to have our students with us and supporting and wrapping arms around and welcoming our students. We do serve, because this question we anticipated may come up, we serve 673 immigrant students across our district. And as I said earlier, our students enrich us in so many ways. So it's just a wonderful thing, and we're very proud. I should mention that in the refugee program, Ms. Huda Harajli works closely with our county team and Jewish Family Services, who are integral in helping students enter our district. And it is clear to us that we are what I would call a preferred district because of the level of service that we provide our students, and we're proud and happy to welcome them. In the past year alone, and this is the outreach that Dr. Fedician was talking about, the things that we have learned and how we have connected, our EL teachers worked around the clock and into the evening and weekends to make sure that the ever-changing landscape of education was made known to our families who may not speak English. And they sent over 33,000 talking point messages. Now, Talking Points is a two-way multilingual engagement platform that our EL teachers use to stay connected. It's a purchase tool that we use, and it's been so powerful to make sure our families are connected, particularly during changes of the pandemic. But it's something that will continue to enrich us and continue to use. So thank you for letting me go on a little longer about that particular slide. I'm just very proud of our team. And I'm going to hand this off to Mr. Kevin Carr. He's going to bring it home with summer school and how excited we are about summer. And then I'm going to wrap with some next steps and we'll take some questions. Kevin.
Thanks. So we continue to be really proud of the amazingly robust set of summer programs that we offer in the AAPS, like we've been doing the last 2 years. And so we've got in-person, we've got remote, we've got credit recovery, we've got programming for exceptional students. And so in elementary, middle, and as we move on to the next slide, in high school, all of those programs that have become known in the last 2 years continue to be available. Just today, we're updating all of the online resources connected to those programs and getting them ready for launch and enrollment in the near future. And so it's really exciting that we've got so many choices for families, and we connect almost every week of the summer. We've got programs that are in place for students who need to extend their learning beyond the traditional year and into the extended school year.
It's powerful to see all of that slide by slide. Thank you, Kevin. Well, we're wrapping with some important next steps where we continue to focus some attention. And this is just a very general overview. There's so much work going on in our classrooms and through our administrators and in coordination with the school leadership crew. But on the left side, we'll talk just a little bit about equity-centered staff development. This pathway to improve and grow in our culturally affirming lens so that we see the world through wider and broader eyes. That work continues through professional development pathways next year. So we look forward to being back together all district and having pathways to continue our mindset work. We also have pathways that we're working on to assist us with our practices, and teachers can move through those on demand, live, or in a blended way, and they can earn badges or micro credentials for that. So we're excited to embark on that path. That's some of our future planning that we're working toward. And of course, we know that we learn best when we can choose. And so having all these options available and teachers being able to choose areas where they want to grow, that's what we look forward to offering. In the centerpiece, where we talk about our student-centered practices, this is the heartbeat, and it's where we live every single day. So I mentioned earlier, we have the addition of math coaches and interventionists. So we're adding 4 to our team for the first time. It's been on our list for quite a while. We're finally able to do this in a grant-funded way. And so 4 math coaches will be joining our team. They will be providing direct intervention services to students. They'll also be coaching our teachers in the same way that our building literacy experts do. We're also working deeper into engagement and expression for students. So increasing our universal design for learning, putting students, as Kevin shared, in the driver's seat of their own learning so that they have agency and ownership. We know that's the key to growth, is better engagement. And we're excited about the work that's coming in sort of shaping up the multi-tiered systems of support that Ms. Jazz Parks and her team shared, really adding to that and incorporating some consistency throughout our schools through those pieces. There's just so much power in that work that the school teams and our executive directors shared that I have to send kudos to that team. It's impressive work, and that work continues. In the far right side, we're talking more about how we deepen our connections with families. We really want to build it as a culture and an expectation. And so we think about the successes we've had over the past 2 years and how we build on those. So liaising more with families directly, engaging with our families more. Dr. Bettina Love said it best. She was talking to us about what she has learned from the pandemic. And she said, you know, what we learned is some things that we thought weren't possible were possible, right? And so this is one of those pieces. Parents as real partners in learning, that had to happen during remote instruction, and we're not going to lose that. We want to be connected with our families. So we're going to continue to seek ways. As Kevin mentioned, we're going to continue to shape our Schoology ecosystem. We are going to build that to make sure it meets the needs of our students and the staff and families who will also be using that system. And we're looking for multiple opportunities to continue to connect. What are some ways that we can make that connection with our families through our digital system and live in more robust ways? Across the bottom, that piece spans across all layers here. We're working in our curricula constantly. There's been a ton of work done about this that we could go on for another hour, which I won't, don't worry, but making sure that our curricula reflects and celebrates our students, right? So they see themselves, they are celebrated, that what they see is culturally affirming to them, that we are building students up and preparing them as critical thinkers. So we're excited also about that work. And next time we come back, we'll have more to share on that. So that concludes Learning Forward in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Linden and Mr. Carr and Dr. Fedician for that great presentation.
Thank you, team. What an extraordinary summary of a whole lot of work. I just appreciate all the work that you've done. Trustee Gaynor, all of our trustees, always note to me that our teachers are just exemplary in their work, and you all support and strengthen and organize and make that work a master plan across the district. And so we can't do it either at the school, in the classroom, or at the district level without a strong partnership. And that's what I see represented here. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you for this opportunity. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.